I had a very good day, full of meetings with the President of the European Council, President of the European Commission, as much as 3 commissioners. And it's always good to be back in Brussels to focus on things which matter in terms of strategic priorities for the government of Serbia. And number 1 strategic priority in terms of foreign affairs for Serbia is European Union, or our accession to the EU. The accession is basically a long, difficult, often frustrating process, I think both for us and for the EU and EU member states. So I can't say that it is frustrating only for us. We are this year not celebrating but marking 10 years since basically the beginning of the accession process, but the first discussions on different chapters were initiated in January 2014. But in 2013, the decision was made to actually start negotiations with Serbia for to become fully fledged member of the European Union. And ever since then, it has been one of the key priorities. I became the minister in end of June 2017. And in each and every, and I had 3 programs for the government, exposés for the citizens and the MPs in the parliament. In each and every expose, the strategic priority, as I said, in terms of foreign affairs was the EU accession. Now, the accession negotiations in its, I would say, mechanisms and technicalities changed 2 times from then on. Firstly, we focused on the chapters, and there were in total 35 chapters. We have opened thus far 22, closed 2 chapters, and then France recommended a new methodology to make things more easily understood, to be easily understood by the citizens, so they can appreciate the accession better. So instead of talking about different chapters, we started talking about clusters, which to me also makes sense because citizens can follow it in a, I would say, a more logical manner, whether we are talking about the environment or energy or economy or taxation or the rule of law, fundamentals, and so on and so forth. So now we have 5 clusters, right, Tanya? 6 clusters altogether. And now we have 2 clusters opened. We're hoping to open 1 more cluster by the end of the year. We will see how successful we are in this job. From what I said, you can understand that it is a very technically very complex, very bureaucratic work. But instead of really talking about chapters or clusters and bureaucracy and technicalities, I like to actually view the accession process in terms of 3 key pillars. And those 3 key pillars are basically reforming each country which wants to become part of the European Union fundamentally. 1 key pillar is public administration. 1 pillar is the rule of law, and 1 pillar is basically economy. And by reforming these 3 key pillars, you are supposed to reform your country, you're supposed to fundamentally reform your society, and basically adopt and apply standards that are what you would say European Union standards in public administration, economy, and the rule of law. I would say that Serbia has advanced the most in terms of this 3rd pillar, that's the economy. And if you look at it, more or less, if we become the EU member today, we would be okay. Our public debt is only 51.4% of our GDP. Unemployment is below 9%. The budget deficit will be probably about 2.8%. The average salary is reaching the standard of the, slowly reaching the standard of the EU. Our competitiveness is quite good. So I think, you know, in those terms, we have performed the best of the reforms and the most of the reforms in terms of the economy. And that pillar is, yes, we're proceeding with that. But in terms of the EU norms, we are closest to become to be fit to become the EU member country in terms of economy. In terms of the public administration, we are also doing quite well, and in terms of transparency, efficiency of the public administration, citizen-focused public administration, we have done a lot in the past 7 years, especially by introducing e-government, in order to have the government which is 100% transparent, which is available to its citizens 24/7, 365 days a year, and the government which is fighting corruption every step of the way. Because once you introduce e-government, you basically create everything to be as transparent as possible. You fight corruption. So public administration reform, we have things to do, and obviously anyone can always improve, but we are good. In terms of the rule of law, still a lot more reforms to follow. And in terms of what we need to do going forward, certainly the full implementation of the media strategy, the fight against corruption, the implementation of the comprehensive strategy for fighting against corruption. Currently, we have only operational plans. We're supposed to do that by the end of September, but other things as well, in terms of fundamentals, human rights, other things, national minorities, and things which are all under the umbrella of the rule of law. But I have to emphasize that in terms of the things which I thought were the most complex, those kind of reforms we pretty much fully implemented, and that is the judicial reform. We have changed our constitution with the support of the EU, with the support of the Council of Europe and Venice Commission, in order to make sure that our judiciary is fully and entirely independent from any political influence. We have then adopted the set of judicial laws, or changed the set of judicial laws to actually align them with the changed constitution. And now it really truly is about judiciary to show that they work in the best interests of the citizens, that they are responsible, that they are accountable, and that they are much more efficient than what they used to be in the past. In terms of other things that stand between us, where we are right now, and us in the EU, I would say from this point, two things. One is the long-term stabilization with Pristina, or some EU member states would say the normalization agreement between Serbia and Kosovo. And it's actually one of the most challenging things right now, because it doesn't depend only on us. It takes two to tango, and unfortunately, especially in the past 24 months, and especially in the year behind us, we had constant tensions, constant provocations, instability, and we are trying very, very hard. The government, with a huge support from President of the Republic of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, to keep things peaceful, as calm as possible, and stable. And the other thing is really our alignment with common foreign and security policy of the EU, or to translate this into, I would say, a normal human language, that is the fact that Serbia still did not introduce sanctions to the Russian Federation. And there are other arguments that, considering that we have only 10 minutes, I wouldn't go into. Perhaps there will be questions from the audience. But these are the things that, in our view, always pop up. These are some of the, I would say, moving goalposts that each of the EU accession countries needs to face. They are the cause of constant frustration. But overall, and to conclude, if you want to become part of the club, in general, the club is allowed to move the goalposts. You can argue about it, you can be frustrated, you can be unhappy about it, but if you want to become part of the club, you need to follow the rules of the club. And for me, the only option, not the best place, by far the best place, but the only option for the sustainable, prosperous future of Serbia is Serbia within the European Union. We are economically already part of the European Union. 65% of our foreign direct investment is from the EU. 65 to 70% of our exports is exports to the EU. We are culturally, geographically, historically part of the European continent and European family of nations. And in the end of the day, I do not think we have a plan B. So that is the road that we decided we want to travel, the best possible road for Serbia. And I, as a last note, have to say that more often than not, the journey is as important as the destination. So the changes that we are doing, that we are implementing to become part of the European Union, we do them in the first place because these changes are good for our citizens, our businesses, our economy, our society, and only then because they will take us to the European Union. But in the first place, they're in the interest of our citizens. So I hope that it won't take another 10 years, but I'm ready if it takes another 10 years, because as I said, we do not have an option B. But I hope that Serbia, as well as all of our other partners from the Western Balkans, will become part of the EU sooner rather than later, because at the end of the day, the European Union is the most successful peace project in the history of the mankind. And if anyone needs to be part of that peace process, then Balkans is certainly part of Europe, which needs that kind of a process.